I know y'all probably like, well, Tiffany, what happened? And my answer to that would be, shit, what didn't happen? What's up, y'all? How you doing? How you doing? You know what I'm saying? I don't know what that was about. So I wanted to try and like break down everything that happened. I mean, a lot went down. I'm trying not to make this video bumpy because I want it to be nice and tight for y'all. I have y'all on my little phone, what do you call it? The little clippity thing on my windshield. So, you know, I want y'all to be steady, you know, rock steady. That's what I'm feeling now. Let's call this song exactly what it is, what it is, what it is, what it is. Anyway, rock steady. I want y'all to be cool. So, I don't even know where we left off. I'm trying to think. I think the last video I did for y'all was Christmas 2 years ago. Damn. It wasn't even Christmas 2018. It was Christmas 2017. So, shit. I was so happy during that time. I had an unexpected blessing of a career. I was a property manager, managing my own property, got promoted to that position after only 2 months with the company, okay? And I was, you know, on the way up. I was working, Mark was working. Mark was working for an e-commerce company. We actually did film that question and answer with Mark and Tiffany for you guys, and it never got uploaded. Because I remember you guys having a lot of questions about Mark and I and our relationship. We filmed it. We were happy. Mark and I had just moved in together. It was lit, you know, whatever. And then everything hit the fan. Mark and I, December 2017 was probably the last time that we were really, really happy. I want to say either December 2017 or February 2018, somewhere around in there. Yeah, February 2018, because we went to Vegas and we had a really lovely vacation for Valentine's Day. Living our life, you know, young working professionals. We were, you know, middle class. We had our finances together. We were both finally in career positions, making enough money to pay all of our bills, finally. Being adults, finally. We were looking at apartments. We were planning to move out of the apartment that Robert and I used to share to find our own townhouse. Lena was happy. Everybody, it was cool. And then March 2018 was definitely the beginning of a nightmare that I am still working my way out of at this very moment. March 2018, Mark's job decided to outsource their entire e-commerce department and their entire customer service, their representatives, their troubleshooting assistants, which is what he did. He used to troubleshoot for an e-commerce company. Basically, he was in charge of people's merchandise. So whatever you were, if you were eBay, UPS, whoever, they would keep, the company he worked for would keep track of your inventory to tell you like, hey bro, you only got 5 shirts left for sale, you need to restock. Or hey, your customers are requesting blah 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 on the website, you need to add that. He would just troubleshoot for companies that were selling merch and monitor their inventory. That was his job. And the company that he worked for decided to outsource his entire department to the Philippines, and they laid off all of their employees. So we went from being a dual income household to just a single income, which was myself. And I was like, okay, it's cool, it's okay. I'm still a property manager. I'm still making a lot of money. You know, everything's fine. And then right after Mark lost his job in March, April of 2018, a month later, I found out that a property had sold in my company. If you're not familiar with property management, I used to work for a property management company, and they owned a bunch of different properties around Southern California. They decided to put one of those properties up for sale. Because the property they chose to sell was a property of a senior manager, he basically had seniority over me. So basically, because I was the last manager promoted, I was the first manager on a chopping block, because his property sold, so they had to find somewhere to put him to honor his seniority in the company. He worked for the company longer than I did, and they couldn't just give him severance pay and say, oh well, get the hell out. They had to provide an option. So he chose to stay with the company and take his old position, which was my new position. Do you follow me? So basically, because I was the last person promoted, I was the first person fired. Not only was I fired or laid off, my maintenance man was laid off, which means he lost his maintenance apartment. He had to find somewhere for his girlfriend and his son to move to. They're scrambling trying to move. The other manager whose property sold, he lost his apartment on that property, so they were trying to find an apartment for him on my property. It basically screwed about 8 people's lives. Some people got laid off, people didn't get to stay with the company, other people got demoted back down to assistants after they had been promoted. Property sales are very ugly. Takeovers are very ugly. And it was the most earth-shattering thing that I have ever been through up until that point. And sorry for the bumps and the shaking. I'm trying to drive as smoothly as possible and avoid the potholes, but you know, it's California. So anyway, so at that point, I knew my position was fleeting. I knew I only had so many weeks to stay with the company, and my manager at the time set up an interview for me with the company who bought that other property. Keep in mind, by the way, the manager who was above me, who took my position, was one of my best friends. That's right, it was my friend Brian. You guys have seen Brian on the vlogs before. He's one of Lena's godfathers. He was also best friends with James before James passed away. So yeah, Brian, who got me hired with the company and started me in this property management career, ended up being the senior manager who took me out of my position. And it was really hard for our friendship at the time, because it wasn't anything personal, it was just business. But the fact that it had to go down like that, it just made everything really stressful. And we were to the point where we were both complaining all the time to all of our friends. And Brian would be like, well, I lost my apartment. And I'd be like, well, I lost my whole ass job. How am I supposed to house your goddaughter if I don't have no damn job? And he was like, well, I don't have nowhere to live because they sold my property. And we would just do this the whole time until another mutual friend of ours would be like, well, y'all shut the hell up. This is a bad situation all around. No one has it worse than the other. But it was tough for our friendship, but we survived, and we're okay. So I ended up interviewing for the company who bought Brian's property. They gave me the job as property manager working for their company, and they hired me to basically teach everyone who was coming into the property about the property that sold, because I knew that property because I started my career there. So literally not even a week after being at the property, they told me, never mind, we decided we don't want an outside manager, or we don't want a person who was trained by another company to run one of our properties. So we're gonna demote you and make you an assistant manager at another property further away from your damn house. And you're gonna have to work there 9 to 10 hours a day. And I was floored. My instant thought was, I wanna quit. But I stuck it out. I tried to do whatever I could, because at this point, Mark wasn't working, and Mark not working and not being able to provide just sent him into a spiral of depression. He was really low, really dark, just dealing with the firing and being a black man and not being able to provide, really, being any man and not being able to provide, really screwed him up, and it took him to a really dark place. At the same time that he got laid off, His grandmother found out that she had cancer once again. His grandmother had had breast cancer earlier on in life, and she beat it successfully, and she was doing great. She was in remission for years, living her best life. And then right around this time last year, she found out that cancer was back. It was back worse. It was already stage 4, and it was inoperable pretty much. And they were doing chemo and putting her in clinical trials, and she was fighting. And the combination of his grandmother fighting for her life and losing his job just basically took Mark out. I really couldn't rely on him as a man, as an equal partner, because he was just getting swallowed up by his depression. And so the only thing that I could do was work. I kept working. I kept going to this job that I hated, that was super far away, working for a company that I could not stand. The company was racist. They were ignorant. They were nothing like the property management company that I worked for before them. So much so I would even text my old boss and say, why did you sell that property? Why did you do this to all of us? Like, I am so depressed. I hate my job. And it wasn't even the office. I love the office culture and people that I work with. I work with beautiful, amazing people in that office where they moved me to. But the company, the higher ups, the executives were terrible individuals. They're just sad ass excuses for human beings. And I hated it. I was sick all the time. I started having issues with my thyroid. I had enlarged thyroid. I was having hyperthyroid, which means my thyroid was overactive. It would cause me to be irritable, get the shakes, be sweaty, back and forth to the bathroom. I know that's TMI, but that's what happens when you're irritable. Everything runs through you. I couldn't sleep. I was restless because my thyroid was hyperactively overworking, doing too much. I still have, and you guys can't see it because I'm far away, but see these little nuds right here? It's not because I'm fat. I mean, I'll admit when I'm fat. I'm fat over here. I'm fat over here. I'm fat right here, you know. But this right here is actually an extension of my thyroid. The normal size of a thyroid is that of like a bow tie. My thyroid is the size of a boomerang. It goes all the way to each side of my neck. And that started right around that time. I had to have biopsies done of my thyroid to make sure that it wasn't a thyroid cancer. I have to go every 6 months to get blood work done to make sure that my thyroid is functioning regularly. And as of now, it's still enlarged, but it has came back to regular function. It's not overacting anymore, so as of now, I'm doing okay. But every 6 months, I go get my blood work done to make sure my thyroid is not tripping. So all of this stuff starts happening. I eventually walked off that job because I was so stressed. What made me leave that job was they violated my contract by trying to change my working hours, and they were trying to change my hours to make me work late and not make me able to pick Lena up from school. And one of the executives called me in my office and said, we're changing your hours, so I guess you got to do what you got to do. And I said, what the hell you mean I got to do what I got to do? I have a child. I can't stay here with y'all for an extra 2 hours. Daycare closes at 6. And I left. I walked out. I literally grabbed all my stuff, signed my release form, signed on my affidavit, I'm quitting because you violated my contract, made a copy of everything I signed, grabbed all my stuff, left my keys to my office, and literally hollered, the devil is real, and left. That's exactly how I left that job. What I ended up doing later was taking all of the documentation and paperwork that I had and filing a complaint with EDD in the unemployment department for the way that they treated me, and I won. So I was able to keep my salary running even though I wasn't working for that company, which by the grace of God, that held me down. That held me down for 6 months, because the next 6 months got even, damn it, worse. No, that was not all that happened. It got worse than that. So that was March, April, May. In the month of May, James started to get sick. And on top of James being sick, Mark's grandmother got sicker. And on top of that, Mark and I, we were doing okay, but we were struggling because he just wasn't an equal partner anymore, and he wasn't able to help me as a man should help someone. And it was tough. It was tough trying to tiptoe around his ego and not emasculate him, but also say, hey, you need to get the hell up and start applying for stuff. What the hell? So he started trying to apply for jobs, and he worked other little part-time jobs for like DirecTV and like security installation systems, but he never gave it his all. Well, he was trying, but it's like his depression was just eating him alive. He would come home and say I had to walk out of work because I was crying trying to sell DirecTV. And that broke my heart because I knew he was not ready for what was about to happen. And we were expecting his grandmother to go because they had told us to prepare. You know, she's not going to make it. It's not working. The cancer's spreading. You know, it's only a matter of time. And out of the clear blue sky, as we were waiting for his grandmother, James died. James died, well, y'all know, y'all saw the video, July 11th, 2018. I left my job and filed my complaint with EDD on June 22nd. That's the time frame. I left my job on June 22nd and James died July 11th. And I remember talking to James about leaving the job. He was like, what? That's crazy. And I was like, I know. And literally like 3 days before he passed, he called me and he said, Tiffany, I can't drive myself to the hospital and I don't feel well. I said, what's wrong? He said, it's probably just another something going on. They probably need to adjust my chemo pills again because the pills don't seem to be working. No matter how much chemo I take or what I do, I don't feel like my normal self. He was losing weight, he was frail, and they just kept telling him, oh, you know, it's just a normal cancer episode, a normal episode that you would normally have. You know, you'll come out of it. And I remember driving him to the emergency room that day, and I said, do you want me to stay with you? And he said, no, I'm fine. I don't want you to stay in here and get sick and catch some germs, and then you'll go home and you'll get Lena sick. I don't want y'all sick. And I said, well, you can always call me. I said, you can always call me because I will always love you. And he said, he just looked at me and smiled and said, I appreciate that. I think he knew something was wrong, but he didn't want to worry me. There's never been a time where I've said I love you to James where he didn't say it back. And that was the first time that he didn't say it back. And it was like he couldn't say it. Like he was just looking at me and just kind of like, thank you. And like 4 days later, he died. He had a brain bleed. His brain was, you know, and these are all side effects and complications of leukemia. You know, his blood is just not the same as our blood because he has leukemia. So he had a brain bleed and they didn't know it. When they found out, they went in to go operate on it, but by the time they went to go operate on it, it was too late and he did not recover and he was gone. And his sister called me and said, you have to come to the hospital. And I did. And the entire day before he died, I sat at that hospital by his side and held his hand. I didn't leave. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I just stayed by his side and held his hand. And me and Brian and his sister and his parents and his brothers, we just stayed there because we didn't know what to do. And the doctors were just saying, you know, James is gone. You guys need to let us know when we can start the process to turn things off and let him go. And nobody wants to hear that shit. I didn't. When somebody's been in your life for 18 years, since I was 13, I'm now 31 years old. I've known him since I was 13. Nobody wants to hear that. And it was such a dark place for me. Really dark. And at the same time that I was going through, Mark was going through with his grandmother, and her health was failing. I remember her texting me and calling me and giving me her condolences for James. And she was in the hospital herself with her lungs failing, with her kidneys failing. His grandmother was a very sweet woman. And, you know, unfortunately in the beginning, Mark's mom did not care for me. I guess she thought that I was too opinionated, and she didn't like that I spoke up. She just, you know how some mothers don't, I know that I can be strong sometimes, and sometimes it's a lot of people to handle. And I think she expected me to be very docile, and I'm not. I'm respectful and I'm polite and I say hello and, you know, all of that. But I think it was something she was asking Mark, and I answered instead of Mark, and that rubbed her the wrong way. And from that point, she just was not fond of me. And his grandmother was the total opposite. We were like best friends. She would text me, she would call me, we would talk all day. We would talk about Mark, and she was like, girl, he over there being dumb. I said, yep, all the time. And she was just very vocal. She cared a lot. She cared about me. She cared about Lena. She cared about Mark being a good example for Lena. She cared about a lot of things that I've never seen a grandmother care about. I've never seen a parent, period, in the time that I've been dating men, be that communicable with me. She was just on it. Like, she reminded me of Robert's mother. You guys know how I feel about my in-laws. I love them to death. But yeah, she reminded me of Robert's mother a lot. And I just took to her. She was just a really sweet person. And oh my God, I don't want to cry. She called me in her room one time, and she said, you know, Tiffany, I have stage 4 cancer. I'm dying. And Mark is not ready for it. And I need you to get him ready. And I said, oh shit. I said, why me? She said, because you love him. I know you love him. And when I'm gone, I know that you will make sure that he's okay. And you'll kick his ass when he needs to have his ass kicked. And you'll do the right thing. And you will care about him. You're gonna be his family now that I'm gone. And I need you to prepare him for that idea. And I thought to myself, well, he got a mama, he got a daddy, he got brothers. She was like, it's not the same. The way he loves you is different from the way he loves them. And you're gonna be his family. So I need you to get him ready for this. And she said, just do what you can. Just Stay by his side if you can. If he's not doing the right thing, then leave him. But if you feel like he's the right one, stay by his side and do the right thing and help him grow. He needs help. He'll be good to you, but he needs some help to get there. He's not perfect. And I said, okay, I promise. That's what I'll do. So, like I said, it was by the grace of God that I filed a complaint on that employer, and that EDD and unemployment they sided with me, and they found that employer at fault for firing me against my contract, because that really sustained our household for the next 6 months while we were going through hell on earth, grieving everyone at the same time. Like I said, James passed in July. One of my other friends lost his mother in May, and that was a really hard one too, because James was really close to his mother. So while James was sick, he was kind of mourning the death of someone that he considered his godmother. So we had James died in July. Mark's cousin passed before his grandmother. His cousin just randomly died in his sleep. Healthy, 38, I think he was either 38 or 40. A family man, kids and everything. Went to sleep and never woke up. Just died in his sleep. So we're having funerals every month at this point. My other friend, his mother passed in May. James died in July. Mark's cousin died in either end of July or beginning of August. And finally in September, Mark's grandmother passed away. Her cancer was so aggressive, it was in her chest cavity, her stomach, her lung, her everything. She actually wasn't even able to eat. And I think that's partly why she passed from starvation as a side effect of the cancer. It was not a pretty way to go. She actually requested that she wanted to come home. She didn't want to die in the hospital. So they brought her home, and about 5 or 6 days after they brought her home, she was gone. Planning these funerals, I had to plan James's funeral because his parents were just too grief-stricken and too sad to do it. Me and Jamori planned it. I had to sing at James's funeral because that was his request. He never wanted nobody to sing but me. And I had to get on stage and sing, and I did the programs. I helped pick the suit that he wore in his casket. I had to pick the last things that were ever going to touch his body. And we had to make sure that he went out in the right way and that his service was beautiful. And I'm so glad that we were able to do that. And you know, looking back on it, it was a blessing. God knew all of this. God knew all of this. And that's why I wasn't at that job. That's why the EDD complaint came through. That's why I was able to be financially stable even while not working, because God already knew it was about to hit me like a ton of bricks, and there'd be no way I could work and plan and go to all of these funerals and deal with all this grief and all this depression and all this stress at the same time. God knew that. And I look at the timing of all of it and I go, wow. I walked off that job June 22nd. Side note, my niece was born June 29th. My beautiful niece, Rosalind. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, you've seen that my sister had a second daughter. Her name is Rosalind. She's 9 months now, or 10 months. And, you know, I was so happy that I was able to be in the delivery room with my sister. And the day that my niece was born was Mark and I's 1 year anniversary. Our anniversary is June 29th, and that's the day that my niece was born. So I walked off that stupid job June 22nd. My niece was born June 29th. James passed away July 11th. Mark's cousin passed about end of July, beginning of August. We had James's funeral. The weekend of his birthday. His birthday was July 27th. And his sister's is July 28th. Even though they're twins, they're born, like one was born at 11:50 something and one was born at 12:01. So they're born on 2 different days. But we had from July 11th, when he passed away, to get his viewing and wake and funeral and repast scheduled for July 22nd, or July 27th, excuse me. So we had about 2 weeks to plan James' funeral, Jamori and I. And I had that whole 2 weeks every day. Okay, today we going to look for a place for the repast. Today we going to look for suits. Today we getting all the pallbearer suits. Today I'm editing the video that'll play at the service. Today I'm going to pick up the obituaries that I used the website we created them, and I typed the obituaries and everything, and then I had them mass printed, and then I went to go pick them up from the printer. Every day was something different, and I needed every day. I can't imagine having to have worked a job and do that. I don't think I would have been able to do it.